And welcome to another edition of the Huddle with Marty Houston. I'm your host, Jason Pattyson, here on hogville.net YouTube Live. I want to thank Pixabay for the audio. Any photos that we do bring up will be by John James. I want to thank him for all of those incredible shots. Marty, how you doing tonight?
Doing good. Hoping this works well. I've got my little dog sitting here by me, and this
Oh,
may be a
fun.
mistake. This may be a mistake letting him in here. He goes crazy but he wanted to be in here, and I didn't want to hear him out there outside the door, and so he's going to try to sit here next to me. If I keep scratching him, maybe we'll make it through this. Okay.
What kind of a dog do you got? Do you have?
He's like, he's like what Coach Brett Bielema used to have, a little Yorkie, and
Oh, nice.
Phineas is his name, and
Yeah.
he's usually in my lap, when I'm home. So I've got him. I've kind of got him close by, and like I say, if I keep scratching him, see if
Mhm.
I can keep this up. He would love it for 30 minutes if I just sit here and just scratch him. So maybe this will work.
Oh,
I don't
yeah.
know.
I know exactly what you mean. I've got a beagle. And he's 3 years old, and he has to be in the same room with me. If not, he will sit there and whine, cry, and paw at that
Yeah,
door
yeah.
until he gets in. And I'm like, okay, I got to do this, but okay, I can make the the consolidation of making sure that he's in here too, because if not, it's just going to be crazy.
Well, I started to leave him outside, and he wasn't going to have that. I'm like, okay, if I let you in here, you're going to have to sit here and be quiet. I'm like, okay, just keep scratching me. We'll see if we'll make it work. So,
Oh man, so whenever we were looking back at what happened on Saturday with Kent State, it was kind of a bitter taste in a lot of folks' mouths at first. And then you kind of go back and you look and you're like, okay, maybe it wasn't quite as bad as what some thought. And I think that Arkansas is going to be, they're going to elevate their competition level when they come into the field Saturday. You've got Razorback Stadium at night. Everybody's had it all day of the tailgate. It's going to be on ESPN, and it's just a little bit more crisp air. It's cooler now. It
hmm.
feels like football weather.
Yeah, oh, yeah. I'll take it over that first week any day.
Yeah.
What we have going on. So it's a night game. It's our first night game of the year. So
Yeah,
yeah.
it's gonna be a lot of fun. And usually, whenever you give Razorback fans an all day tailgate, boy, they come into the stands and they elevate that level of that feel in the air of, man, this place can be electric. It doesn't have to sound like the doldrums. I just can't wait for it.
Well, again, you've elevated your opponent. You're talking about elevating the
Mhm.
opponent's been elevated. BYU is a step up from what we've had in Kent State and Western Carolina. So I would say that's number one, and it's going to look like that, for the rest of the year with our, right after this, we're getting ready for LSU. That's going to be a night game down in Baton Rouge, and we're going to Arlington, Texas, and have Texas A&M and fully into conference play then. So, but first of all, BYU, that was a high scoring game last year.
Mhm.
52-35, I think, was the final score in that one,
Yep.
and it could be like that once again this year. So
That's something that I think a lot of people are looking forward to. It is a high scoring game, like you saw that first game against Western Carolina. Because I mean, when you score points, it just energizes the crowd, and everybody feeds off of that.
yeah, absolutely, and I expect a big crowd to be on hand, once again this week. So yeah, absolutely. They'll feed off of it. They know that BYU's just got that tradition,
Mhm.
and they have a pretty good traveling fan base. In fact, I was hearing from some of our guys at the station there, the Pig Trail Nation, that they have uh, an alumni group in Fayetteville, Northwest Arkansas, that is
Oh,
getting together, and we're planning on talking to them and visiting with them on the game day show on Saturday.
wow.
So but they usually they'll send a lot of people, and A lot of there was a lot of talk of how Arkansas fans and the media were treated when they went to Utah last year for that game. Just the beautiful setting, and then they were treated so well. And so I think that there is some mutual respect in that regard
Yes.
with the fan bases.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that because I mean, and whenever you see a BYU fan come up, I mean, it's not like you're seeing an LSU fan or a Texas fan. You're
Yeah,
gonna go up and greet them because they're gonna be nice back to you. So always make sure to keep that camaraderie with when you go up and see some folks.
that's right.
So when I want to look at something really quick, Coach Pittman coaching, so they're going to find what works with the best players that they've got, and they're going to put them in the right positions. And I think that that's something that both of those guys, actually all position coaches, have kind of got together and kind of formulated a plan. They're trying to find out what works. And these first 2 weeks have been a great litmus test of being able to see what doesn't work so that they can go ahead and scrap that.
It's a new offensive coordinator this year, so I think that Arkansas is kind of going through a few things with personnel. I know that BYU is as well, so I think Arkansas is still trying some things. I fully expect BYU to come in because they've actually had pretty good. I mean, as much as we talk about BYU and the high scoring offenses and the offensive players that we've seen in the NFL from the past, that you've got a team, first of all, that in their first couple of games have been pretty good defensively. They've only allowed 16 points. They shut out Sam Houston State in the first game, 14-0, and only allowed 16 points last week. So I think that they're going to watch what Western Carolina and Kent State did, and they're probably going to load the box too, try to stop the run. It was a big game last year, if you might remember, with Rocket Sanders. He, especially in the second half of that game, he was one of the difference makers in that one. And I think that he's going to be back after being off for a week, and I think they're going to try to load the box too. So I don't know if that's going to be the way that teams play Arkansas this year, but I would think that some of them are going to force KJ Jefferson to beat them. And right now, Arkansas is going through finding out who their playmakers are at wide receiver. It's a whole new group of wide receivers this year, and we've seen some plays, from the wide receivers, and I think that Dan Enos is looking at that and figuring out, who his guys are, who he wants in certain situations. I've picked out some guys. Some of the guys are home run hitters. Some of the guys like Tesla is a guy that's going to be a good possession receiver, and adds a lot coming in. Maybe a different element for Arkansas coming in out of the slot position. So, I think they're going through that, and they're figuring out some of these guys because they are new. Just like with BYU, they've got some new guys that have transferred in, and they're kind of figuring that out too on their side.
So I want to switch gears for just a second here, and I'm glad that you brought up trying to figure out what guys that work best, because Bama has a little bit of a quarterback situation down there in Tuscaloosa. I know that Nick Saban's gonna get it figured out, but after the showing that they had Saturday against Texas at home, it didn't leave a great taste in anybody's mouth down there.
No, I mean, it's surprising, especially when you see Alabama lose at home a game. And I heard this brought up that maybe Texas and Oklahoma might be ready a little more than what we're giving them credit for in coming into the SEC. I don't pretend that Jalen Milroe is Bryce Young, but I think we all saw it right there in Fayetteville last year. Bryce Young got knocked out of the game, and I thought Milroe came in and did pretty well. Now they ran it very well too, but he made some plays with his legs and his arm, in that game. I think some of the surrounding cast may be a little different. I mean, we're so used to seeing Alabama putting guys that are in, I think was it 4 guys in the top 10 picks in the draft this year. But I thought Milrose came in and did a really good job when Bryce Young was knocked out. You would have thought Arkansas would have been in really good position, and we were scoring that day. He had to match the Arkansas offense, and they did. And I thought he did pretty well. Now that was just that game, but he's a very good athlete. There's certainly differences with him and Bryce Young, but and maybe a step down. But I still think he's pretty good. I still think Alabama's pretty good. I think they're still going to put guys in the NFL draft. Maybe not like what they have in recent years, but. But they are still going to put a lot of guys in the NFL draft, and I wouldn't look at that much of a drop off. So we'll be facing Milrose again later on in the season.
Yep. And one of the things that I've looked at, I've talked to Kirk Bowles a little bit about this too. Not this last SEC media days, but the one before, was that whenever Texas and Oklahoma announced that they were moving to the SEC, they've had a solid year and a half now to recruit to homes or to kids and going into homes and saying, no, we're going to be in we're in the Big 12 right now, but when your kid comes on campus, we're going to be in the SEC. That is a huge tool for them to use when they walk in those homes when they're going against an Oklahoma State or a Kansas State, or you just go down the list there in the Big 12 country. That's a huge leg up that they have as far as recruiting goes. And I think, like you just said, they might be more ready to step in the SEC than we thought.
Well, I think so. Oklahoma has always recruited well. So has Texas. Mm-hmm. I think it broadens everybody's recruiting base with the way the conference is going to expand. It will allow, everybody from Texas, which Texas and Florida are some of the most fertile grounds that there are for high school recruits. And it's going to, everybody from Florida has always kind of looked at being in the SEC, but the Texas kids maybe even a little bit more, than before, when they're looking at Oklahoma and LSU and Arkansas and other schools that, other surrounding states. I think it just broadens everybody's recruiting base when you're talking about those two states in particular in recruiting out of it. But Oklahoma and Texas have always they've had a long. That's why they were invited to the SEC, because they have such storied programs and have. I've got one Oklahoma guy that. I grew up with that gives me recruiting reports on Oklahoma all the time. The guys that they're bringing in, so yeah, it's going to help them, being in, and maybe getting into some of the Florida players. Who knows?
So this past weekend, New York City was the place to be. You had with the 22-year later memorial with the 9/11 attacks. They New York does an incredible job remembering all of those folks individually, not just as a group, but individually, as they should be. You had the New York Giants. They got shellacked by the Dallas Cowboys on Sunday Night Football. Then last night you had Aaron Rodgers really kind of steal the headlines for all the wrong reasons.
Well, no, I think it was the right reasons. There was a lot of hype around him being in New York and playing his first game with the Jets. And so, I mean, you wanted to see what he was going to bring. Yeah, he's 39 years old. He was not the story of the game, but you wanted to see how he was going to be with this team. And it as you saw this game, with the Jets and the Bills last night, because the Bills are a pretty good team too, and you can see the Jets have a pretty good team even without Aaron Rodgers. I think that was the story. Zach Wilson was a guy that's been criticized a lot, drafted by the Jets. Now he's the man again, and it looks like he's going to be the man all season long. You're right back to where you start, but you built up some other guys defensively and offensively with them, and they showed they can go toe to toe with one of the best teams in the AFC.
Yeah, their special teams were on point last night. I was watching, I would say, mostly the second half, and Zach Wilson, it didn't matter what type of adversity was thrown at him from the Buffalo defense. He just kept answering that bell, and it wasn't flashy. He just grinded it out. And for the special teams to become to come up special like they did in overtime, that team is pretty complete.
It is. Again, you got playmakers on there. You've added Dalvin Cook, but you already had Breece Hall, who was coming off an injury, but was having a heck of a rookie year. Garrett Wilson had a heck of a rookie year. You've got weapons, you've got playmakers on there, and I think that Zach Wilson maybe benefiting for the time that he's been having Aaron Rodgers with him and having that experience and helping him out. So. I think they're going to be okay with him. I'm looking at who they might pick up as a backup. I've never heard of the guy that they've got on the practice squad that they're elevating now. Joe Flacco was with them last year. He's available. He could get re-signed, and that would make some sense that they might bring him back in since he's got experience with the Jets organization, the Jets offense. So yeah.
So let's kind of switch gears in sports for just a second. So you have the U.S. Open that wrapped up in Flushing this weekend, and you saw Coco Gauff. First time that an American's won the U.S. Open since 2017, which was Sloane Stephens, and she's the youngest winner since Serena Williams did it back in 1999. Gauff is 19. The youth and being able to go through that grind of making it through that entire tournament, it really takes a toll on a person's body. And you saw that her youth just kept elevating her performance, where don't get me wrong, she had an incredible match there in the championship, but sometimes that youth kind of plays into the factor in the end result.
I mean, I'm not the tennis fan that I used to be. Back. I mean, there's a lot back, in the 70s and the 80s that I used to watch. I was a big Chris Everett fan, and Jimmy Connors and John McEnroe and some of these guys. I watched a lot of them and used to watch tennis a little bit more religiously than I do now. But a girl like Coco Gauff, after recently, watching King Richard and the movie and the whole story, just such a great story of the Williams sisters growing up. And this girl's only 19 and picking up on where she was. She's not quite the same thing. Her dad has been involved. He was a basketball player, I think, for Georgia Tech. He was a basketball player, and he did not really push her into tennis the way that the Williams sisters. I mean, if you watch the movie, you know what I'm saying. Their dad had a plan. Yeah, he had it all planned and how they were going to play tennis. Got them with the coaches, and they, that's one play. Coco Gauff and Serena Williams had a shared coach, one of the same coaches, but she learned, like, by the time she was about 8 years old, that that's what she wanted to do. She wanted to play tennis. And it was more on her own, and her dad didn't really push her. Although once she got involved, he helped her out and worked with her. So it was different in that way. But you could just see just so much stardom ahead for this young girl. I mean, again, only 19 years old. She's really focused on wanting to play. She knew it from an early age and worked hard at it the way the Williams sister did. And you see some similarities between her and both Venus and Serena Williams, and the way they're coming up and you saw the frustration of the girl that she beat in the finals. Which again, if you watched the movie about the Williams sisters, you saw that early on when they were youngsters themselves, and how they would frustrate some of their opponents.
And you saw Novak Djokovic. He won his 24th Grand Slam this on, I do believe it was Sunday afternoon. So he beat Daniil Medvedev, and so this was Djokovic's 4th Open title. But one of the biggest stories over the weekend was that he played in his record 47th semifinal, which is now one more than Roger Federer, and that's a feat to be able to top possibly one of the icons of tennis. I mean, to me, he's one of the, Roger Federer is one of those Mount Rushmore type tennis players that have, they went across, they've transcended multiple decades now. And he just keeps pumping out win after win.
Well, I mean, again, it was his 24th Grand Slam, which is a record. And I don't want to say 36 years old is old. I don't think it's too old. I'd love to be 36, but I mean, you wonder how much more he can keep playing at this level and holding off these young, because there's some young stars on their way. Kind of like what you see with Coco Gauff. That there's some good young guys coming up, and they may be pushing through before long. So. Celebrate it while he's 36 and playing these playing these matches and holding them off. Age will catch up. And I like I say, I mean, how old is Serena Williams? What is she, 40?
Yes, she's either 40 or 41.
I don't even know if she's 40, but she's already and really the last couple of years you look at.
I'm thinking Venus. Sorry, I'm thinking of Venus.
Now, Serena, I don't even know if she's 40 yet.
No, I think she might be 38, 39, right around that area.
And again, you've seen it like I have. Last couple of years, she's just kind of, it's almost been like a tour, I mean, she really hasn't been the one that's been on top like she was. And so that's what you're looking at with Djokovic. I mean, he's not that much younger than what she is what I'm saying. That's my point. And so, like I say, I don't know how much more he's got in him, but the guy can say celebrate it, and I always root for the older guys. So hopefully he can keep winning at a high level.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see where he goes for the rest of this season too. I want to switch gears again. We're gonna go back to NFL for just a second.
Okay.
You saw the Kansas City Chiefs Thursday night. They really didn't perform to the level of what Chiefs Nation was expecting. You had, Travis Kelce out with a knee injury. You also had Chris Jones, which was a holdout. He sat up in the suite there in Arrowhead. He watched the team play. He watched the unveiling of the banner. He watched the team lose. And now all of a sudden, now we got Chris Jones back in the fold, and he signed yesterday with the Chiefs for a 1-year tender. And that's going to be a really big difference maker for the Chiefs, getting him back into the fold, because he has such a dominating presence in the middle.
He's a playmaker, again, I mean, we talked about that last week, and I was sharing some of the concerns that, the Chiefs going into this, when you have a team that's been on the rise with the Detroit Lions, you don't have Kelce playing, you don't have Chris Jones. These edge pass rushers are almost, they're not on the same level as the quarterback, but they're not far behind. No. And I think they are hard to find on the defensive side. When you talk about the Bosa's and the Parsons and guys like that truly make a difference in disrupting an offensive scheme with that pass rush. And Chris Jones is one of those guys. And so they needed him back. They needed it for team morale. I think for nothing else, it gives them a boost. And hopefully they got them both back into the fold this week. I don't know if Kelce where he's at health-wise, but I would think that there's a decent chance that he would play this weekend.
I think there is. And honestly, if you don't have Chris Jones in the middle, Kansas City doesn't win a Super Bowl last year
Yeah,
because Jalen Hurts and his legs, that was one of the huge difference makers they thought that would propel the Eagles past the Chiefs, but that front four neutralized anything that Jalen Hurts could do, and it really made him look pedestrian. And
yeah.
then you have Jared Goff come in, and he looked like he was a gangbuster again, like he was back with the Rams.
Well, Jared Goff is pretty good, but again, you don't have that pressure on him, which Chris Jones could
Mhm.
have added, and so it's going to help. I mean, that's it. He's a playmaker. He's a playmaker, a big playmaker on the defensive side for the Chiefs and for team morale. You know, I even heard Kelsey talking about this in the preseason about boy, man, we really need you back, and you know, a lot of the Chiefs players were thinking the same thing, and so you know. I just think it's good for the team morale that he's back in the fold with them, and back where hopefully he's playing at a high level when he's added back to the team this week.
Yep. Kevin Lucas chimed in just a couple of minutes ago, and he asked, "How good is BYU this year?"
Well, again, they've showed a little bit better defensively. I mean, Sam Pittman even got his attention talking about it. They've only allowed 16 points.
Yeah.
Now, in their opening game, you may have heard their fans maybe grumbling a little bit. They won 14-0 over Sam Houston. But Sam Pittman was pointing out, hey, Sam Houston's not bad either. He said he paid attention a little bit what they had, and he said they've got a pretty good offensive team that they shut out, and then they only allowed 16 points this last week. So Arkansas has had good defensive efforts. You know, I would think that if you hear comments from anybody on Hogville or fans talking generally, that most of our concerns are about the offense too, and what we've seen, and what Dan Enos is bringing back. What's it looking like with this? There's to me there's just a lot of new players. When you think about it, you've only really had this year Rocket Sanders. It's two main guys when you talk about Rocket Sanders and KJ Jefferson. But
Yep.
those are the top. I mean, a lot of the offensive line's gone. All of the receivers are gone. So there's a lot of new guys that they are trying to meld into this new scheme. And he's been working with them all summer and during the two-a-days, and still working with who your guys are. I think KJ Jefferson even to a certain degree. Figuring out who the guys he likes to throw to. His favorites.
Yep. One of the things that honestly, I really thought about this deeply over Sunday, a little bit through Monday, and I mentioned this to Otis and Dudley too, is that whenever you look at Sam Pittman, you look at Dan Enos, those are two names that the fan base is very familiar with. We saw what they were able to do whenever Brett Bielema was here, and you kind of I almost think that familiarity with the fan base thought that was going to translate into them being able to walk into that locker room with the players that they've got right now and say, okay, this is how we're going to fix this. This is what we're going to do better. This is how we're going to make this better. And I think that the fans and the familiarity kind of step back for just a second and say, these are a different set of guys that they're working with.
They are. When you looked at what's first of all, you go back to 2013-14 when Enos first got here, you could see first of all what a good job that Brett Bielema and Sam Pittman and that group had put together in recruiting. With guys like Alex Collins and Brandon Allen and you had Hunter Henry, and Enos had a pretty good group to work with. A lot of those guys that they had from last year gone, from this year, offensive lineman. He did have a pretty good quarterback to work with, a pretty good running back in Rocket Sanders, but you don't have the Ragnows and the guys up front. Yeah, Dan Skipper and some of those guys. So I mean, it's some new, and again, no shade on the offensive linemen they have now. I just think that's the way college football is, that you may be interchanging a lot with the transfer portals and things like that there will be a lot of interchangeable parts more than there have been in previous years. And so, they're getting some of that eased in and figured out. And BYU is the same way. BYU has got some new guys that they brought in, and they like some of those guys, and they kind of put it together a little bit better offensively this past week than what they did in week one. And so Arkansas kind of doing the same thing. But again, I fully expect to see BYU loading the box the way these guys did and try to stop that run. They know that Arkansas's got potent running backs and that they like to run the ball. Dan Enos liked to run the ball. He liked to run the ball before. I think Bielema demanded it. I think that Pittman demands it too. Plus, they've recognized some things that they want to still work on.
Yep. Definitely. Well, Marty, it's already been that 30-minute time period again. Man, I'm telling you.
Did we get through everything? Did we get through your whole list?
Yeah, I know. That was quite a list. I was trying to put a little bit of pointers in, or a little bit of information in there too. But yeah, when I put a show rundown, man, I try to beef it up a little bit so that way if we don't get to everything, to me that's better than not getting to enough. So, man,
okay.
Make sure to check out us. Our stories, content, shows, you name it. It's on hogville.net. And we're going to be here every Tuesday night, 7:00. Everybody, I want you to jump on. I want you to put your comments up there. We'll answer your questions. And I'm ecstatic. This is a lot of fun, man. I'm really enjoying this.
Okay. Well, I appreciate it too. Enjoy being here, and hopefully we didn't leave anything out. Hopefully we're getting everything in there that we're supposed to.
Thank you guys for joining us with the Huddle with Marty Houston.